On a windless October afternoon in 1985, the Martinez family basement smelled faintly of dust, cardboard, and the kind of forgotten summers that live only in old photo boxes. The light came through a narrow window, thin, colorless, almost hesitant, as if unsure it should intrude on what the family was about to find. Upstairs, the neighborhood kids were walking home from school, sneakers slapping against pavement, the sound normal, harmless, utterly ordinary. And that was precisely why no one in the Martinez household ever expected their quiet suburban life to brush against the edges of the Cold War. Kim Martinez knelt beside an open storage bin, flipping through an album she hadn't seen in a decade. The pages crackled with that dry, brittle sound old paper makes when it remembers it's been ignored. She smiled at the early photos, Halloween costumes, backyard birthday cakes, her father grilling burgers in a shirt 2 sizes too small. Then she turned to a picture of their babysitter, Elena, and froze. The photo was from 1968, taken with a Polaroid whose colors had softened into a warm, nostalgic haze. Elena stood beside the kitchen counter, smiling politely, holding a bowl of popcorn. She looked maybe 25, thin, composed, porcelain posture. Kim flipped forward 13 pages. Another photo, this one from Christmas 1984. Same kitchen, same counter, same smile, same age. No difference. Not even subtle aging around the eyes. Not a wrinkle, not a change in hairstyle, not a shift in posture. Elena looked identical. Kim sat back, the weight of the album suddenly heavier in her hands, as if the pictures themselves understood something she didn't. A draft drifted through the basement, lifting the edges of loose photos like they were trying to get her attention. She turned another page. Again, Elena. And again, unchanged. Her heart began to thump the way it does when something familiar suddenly becomes unfamiliar, when memory and evidence refuse to shake hands. The house seemed to quiet around her, as though pausing to listen. From upstairs, she heard the basement door creak open. "You okay down there?" her father called. Kim stared at the photos before answering. "Yeah. I just found the old albums." She didn't mention Elena. Not yet, because even saying it out loud felt strange, childish, paranoid. People don't stay the same for 17 years. People don't freeze in time. And yet Elena had. When she closed the album, a tiny square photo slipped out and fluttered to the concrete floor. Kim picked it up. The timestamp on the back was smudged but legible. 1969, first day with Elena. In the corner of the frame, a radio on the kitchen shelf glowed faintly. And at that exact moment, this Kim remembered clearly, the radio had made that odd hissing sound it always made when Elena walked into the room. Kim never thought about it again. But now, holding the photographs, she felt that same quiet pressure in her chest, the sense that something small, something ordinary, had been wrong for a very long time, and that she was only now seeing it. For the next 2 days, the photographs lived inside Kim's mind, the way a song sometimes does, uninvited, looping, refusing to fade. She didn't tell her parents, not because she feared being dismissed, but because she couldn't yet articulate what felt wrong. "Our babysitter never aged" sounded like something a child would whisper after a nightmare, not a 2-3-year-old adult would say in broad daylight. But small memories kept rising, each one carrying the same quiet unease she felt in the basement. She remembered how Elena never stayed for coffee when her mother offered, always declining with a soft smile, always leaving with the same measured steps, as though she practiced them. She remembered how Elena knew the exact moment someone walked toward the house, turning her head before footsteps even reached the porch. And she remembered the radio, The kitchen radio, the cheap plastic thing her father bought at a yard sale, would crackle every time Elena walked by, not with static, with a tight, clipped burst of sound, like a coded click. Sometimes it pulsed twice, sometimes 3 times. It happened enough that Kim's brother once joked, Elena must be magnetic, but the clicks stopped the year Elena disappeared. On a chilly Wednesday evening, unable to shake the feeling that the photographs meant something deeper, Kim took them to her friend Marcus, an engineering student at GWU with an unhealthy love for vintage electronics. He spread the Polaroids across his dorm desk, pushing aside textbooks and half-assembled circuit boards. Same person. Same age, Kim corrected. Marcus leaned in, studying facial symmetry. No sagging around the eyes, no muscle loss in the neck. Even the lighting shows the same skin texture. This isn't normal aging, not even for people who age well. He turned toward the photo of the 1969 kitchen scene. But this is interesting. What? He tapped the glowing radio in the picture. This model shouldn't light up like that unless it's receiving a very strong signal. Strong enough to overload the indicator tube. Kim frowned. It glowed every time she walked in. Marcus sat back slowly, his expression shifting from curiosity to something colder. Kim, radios don't react to people unless there's interference. Something emitting, something transmitting. She laughed nervously. Elena was a babysitter, not a radio tower. Marcus didn't laugh. Look at the glow. It's peaking. This is what we call a burst response. Happens when a device gets hit with ultra-short transmissions, military frequency hopping, encoded microwave bursts. That kind of thing. The words felt absurd. Oversized for the quiet suburbs where Elena used to make popcorn and help with homework. You're saying my babysitter was transmitting something? I'm saying the radio thinks she was. It wasn't the Vicky time. Kim felt her throat tighten. Then, where was the signal going? Marcus didn't answer. He didn't have to, because at that exact moment, from the corner of the room, his old shortwave receiver powered off, unplugged, emitted a faint, crisp click, just once. Just enough to freeze both of them where they sat. Just enough to suggest that whatever Elena had been doing in the Martinez household hadn't completely stopped in 1984. Something was still listening. Something was still out there. The next morning, Kim woke with the same tension behind her ribs, the kind that arrives before a storm you can't yet see. Marcus's theory, if it even qualified as a theory, clung to her like static. Something was still listening. So she went looking for the only place where answers might still exist. Paperwork. Her parents kept decades of old files in a metal cabinet, in the garage warranties, tax slips, medical forms, and a drawer labeled childhood babysitters. Kim expected to find the usual forms, emergency contacts, availability sheets, maybe a handwritten note Elena once left taped to the fridge. She found none of it. There was a half-filled 1981 application from a neighbor's babysitter, a YMCA flyer from 78, a phone list from 84, but nothing from Elena. Not a contract, not a phone number, not even a surname. It was as if she had slipped into their lives with no record of ever entering. Kim stared at the empty drawer before calling her mother. Mom, do you remember Elena's last name? A pause. Too long. Honey, I actually don't. How did you hire her? Another pause. When she stopped babysitting? Do you remember why she left? This time her mother's voice thinned. Uncertain. She moved away. Or she had classes. Or something happened with her family. I can't quite remember. It was so long ago. But it wasn't long ago for Kim. The memory of Elena standing at the kitchen window, backlit by fluorescent glow, humming softly while slicing apples, it felt close enough to touch. and yet everyone else remembered her as if through fog. When Kim visited the Myers house next door, Mrs. Myers narrowed her eyes, searching her memory. Elena. Goodness. I remember someone babysitting in the neighborhood, but I don't recall her face. Was she the tall one? Or the girl with glasses? No. She had reddish hair. Quiet. Textbook perfect. Never aged. Mrs. Myers hesitated, but her expression shifted as Kim showed the two Polaroids. Mrs. Myers blinked. Then again, this girl. Kim felt a shiver crawl up her spine. So you do remember her? No. Mrs. Myers said quietly. That's the problem. I don't. And someone who looked like that, we would have remembered. Fog thickened. What was happening wasn't just bad recollection, it was erasure. By late afternoon, Kim drove to the county library to comb through records, school yearbooks, church newsletters, babysitter lists, preserved on yellowing paper. For 3 hours, she cross-referenced every mention of neighborhood teens, from 1982 to 1987. Elena never appeared. Not once. Not in a single official document. It wasn't just that she hadn't aged. It was that she had never existed on paper at all. Kim closed the final binder, fingers trembling, when a library clerk approached her. Miss, someone called the front desk, asking for you by name. Said you left something important behind. Kim frowned. I didn't leave anything. Well, the caller insisted. Asked if you were in the archive room. And then hung up. A chill moved through the stacks, cold as winter air. No one knew she was here. No one, except Marcus. And Elena, if she was still out there. But the clerk slid a note across the desk. A scrap of paper. Locked letters. One sentence. Stop looking. Kim locked the door of her car the moment she slid inside, hands still trembling from the message. For a full minute, she sat motionless, her breath fogging the windshield, the library note balanced on her knee like a threat she didn't yet understand. If someone wanted her to stop looking, it meant one thing. Her search was working. On instinct, she drove not home, but to the one person who treated paranoia like oxygen. His apartment sat above a hardware store, blinds always drawn, radios in various states of disassembly covering his kitchen table. The moment he opened the door, he saw her face and didn't ask a single question. Inside, Kim placed the Polaroids, the empty babysitter files, and the note on his cluttered counter. Marcus stared at the paper for 3 seconds before his expression hardened. This is block lettering, not handwriting. Someone used a stencil or a letter transfer sheet. That's intelligence world old school. Kim felt her pulse kick. You're joking. No. This is straight out of Cold War operational hygiene. No identifying strokes. No pen pressure. He held the note under a lamp. And this... Look, the ink shimmered faintly. Not normal. Infrared reactive dye, he said. Used by agencies who expect notes to be photographed under alternate light sources. He paused. With Undo Tuve. Before she could respond, one of Marcus's radios crackled an ancient shortwave set from the 1000 for 980 seconds he used for scanning stray frequencies. Tonight, a thin metallic tone pulsed through the speaker. A triple beat, then a second triple beat, then silence. Kim looked at Marcus, confused. His face drained of color. That, he whispered, is a Q signal. Soviet era. Used to tell field assets to revert to fallback protocols. His voice tightened. I've only ever seen it described in declassified manuals, but the Soviet Union is gone. Doesn't matter. Their networks didn't vanish. Some stayed dormant. Some splintered. Some evolved. Kim felt her throat close. And this frequency, why here? Why now? Marcus turned the dial. The signal vanished, then returned stronger, as if triangulating them. It's local, he said. Someone within a few miles is transmitting a legacy cue. The villain to stage, Kim's mind reeled back through childhood. The way Elena always paused when helicopters flew overhead, the way she avoided family cameras, the way she vanished without a goodbye, and the way she never aged in the Polaroids. Marcus, what if Elena wasn't just hiding her past? Kim whispered. What if she was actively connected to something? Before he could answer, the building lights flickered. A second radio on the shelf, one Marcus swore hadn't worked in 10 years, powered on by itself, emitting a thin burst of static shaped like speech, but too garbled to recognize. Marcus swore under his breath, grabbing a notepad and beginning to copy the bursts. This isn't interference, he said. This is coordination. Someone is signaling multiple endpoints. Endpoints? People. Kim stared at the dead Polaroid of Elena. What are you saying? That she was a spy? Marcus lowered the pen. I'm saying she might still be one. Before Kim could process the words, something hit the hallway outside, a soft thud. Both froze. Marcus killed the lights. A silhouette passed beneath the door gap, slow. And then, just as quietly, it walked away. Kim exhaled only when the footsteps vanished down the stairwell. The fog between memory and reality was gone. Something very real and very old had just woken up. The hallway stayed silent for a full minute after the silhouette faded. Marcus held up a hand, signaling Kim not to move. Only when the apartment's old refrigerator kicked back on with its usual rattle did he breathe again. That wasn't a neighbor. Kim swallowed hard. Marcus didn't answer. He moved briskly toward a metal filing drawer, his emergency cabinet, a relic of his years working for a defense subcontractor. From the bottom, he pulled out a case containing a handheld spectrum analyzer, military surplus from the 1990 seconds. If someone is following us using Cold War tradecraft, he said, powering it on, they'll leave a signature. Nothing digital, something analog. Old networks avoid anything traceable. The small screen lit in green phosphor, sweeping across the airwaves. Kim stayed close. The analyzer spiked hard. A narrowband signal trembled at 11.73 megahertzes. Then it split, duplicating itself into two synchronized pulses. Marcus froze. That's not normal, he whispered. That's a reflex transmission. That's what clandestine repeaters used in the 70 seconds to bounce encrypted messages through dense urban terrain. And you're telling me that is happening around us? Now? Marcus stepped to the window, lifting one slat of the blinds. The street outside looked ordinary. Parked cars, a mailbox, a flickering street lamp, but the signal kept pulsing, like a mechanical heartbeat. Whoever left that note at the library, Marcus said quietly, isn't trying to scare you. They're trying to contain something. Kim felt her stomach turn. Contain what? Marcus hesitated. Then he handed her a photocopy, an FBI document he'd pulled from his private files years ago. Labeled Declassified, 2011. The title read, Known Unresolved Illegals Operating in U.S. Civ, 1954. Under it, a list of code names, some crossed out, some highlighted. Halfway down, Elara status, active, believed to be embedded in domestic caretaking roles. Kim felt her fingers go cold. Is this Elena? She asked, voice barely a whisper. Marcus didn't blink. Caretaking was a common cover. Housekeepers, tutors, nannies. They accessed families, schedules, phone lines, male. They were invisible. But the name isn't the same. They never used real ones, he said, but the timeline aligns. And the fact she never aged in the Polaroids, that suggests operational discontinuity. What does that even mean? Marcus looked at her, really looked, the way someone does when they know the truth will hurt. It means she wasn't living one continuous life. She was being cycled, pulled out, returned, updated, just like deep cover assets during the height of the Cold War. Kim shook her head. But that was decades ago. Why would she be active now? Marcus tapped the analyzer screen. The signal had shifted, narrowing its bandwidth, becoming more precise. Because, he said. Outside, the street lamp flickered again. A shadow passed under it. Slow, deliberate, purposeful. Kim stepped back from the window. "Who is that?" she whispered. Marcus closed the blinds. "Not who," he said. "What they're protecting." Kim grabbed a Polaroid of Elena again. Her smile seemed different now, no longer warm, but calculated. The shadow outside paused. A second shadow appeared beside it. And then, as if acknowledging Kim's fear directly, both turned toward the building. Fog of war collapsed into cold realization. They were no longer searching for answers. They were being hunted by them. The two shadows lingered outside the apartment building just long enough to make their presence unmistakable. Long enough for Kim to realize the anonymous warning at the library wasn't a message. It was a countdown. Marcus motioned for her to step back from the window. "They're not here for us," he whispered. "Not yet. They're confirming something." "What thing?" Kim gripped the Polaroid so tightly it bent. What could they possibly want? Marcus opened a second metal case older than the first, dented, wrapped with U. Inside lay a compact broadband receiver from the 1982, the kind used during the last years of the Soviet illegals program to detect field transmissions. He switched it on. A faint clicking filled the room, irregular, almost organic, like a heartbeat, masked by static. Kim's voice trembled. "What is that?" Marcus adjusted the tuning dial. "It's Elena and Cation." Kim went still. "Wait, what do you mean, Elena?" Marcus didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on the glowing red needles rising on the receiver. "This signal is short-range, analog-coded. The same class of low-power packet bursts we found in archived KGB files, the ones believed to be biological modulated." Kim stared at him, uncomprehending. "What does that mean?" Marcus finally turned to her. "It means the network she belonged to wasn't built on radios or drop sites. It was built on people, on their physiology, their breathing, their heart rhythm. They carried transmitters that woke only under certain triggers." He pointed at the receiver. "And Elena's trigger just activated. Impossible. Dead." Marcus shook his head. "Or retired. That's the thing about Cold War assets. They were engineered to disappear the moment they became inconvenient. Not die, not retire, just drift out of civilian memory." Kim's hands shook. I don't understand." Marcus softened for the first time. Outside, the shadows split. One remaining under the street lamp, the other crossing toward a payphone at the corner. Marcus watched their movement with increasing focus. "They're not KGB," he murmured. "Their formation, their perimeter sweep. That's American counterintelligence. But not local. Federal." Kim blinked. "Then why are they watching us?" Marcus inhaled slowly. "Because whatever Elena was part of didn't end with the Soviet Union. It survived, fractured, went freelance. And when these networks fracture, the U.S. doesn't just chase them." He paused, letting the next words land with surgical precision. "It tries to catch their technology before someone else does." Kim felt her breath freeze. Marcus shook his head. And people like her were embedded with tech that shouldn't have existed in the 1,970 seconds biometric-based micro-resonators. Autonomous encrypted pulses triggered by proximity, emotion, or memory recall. Kim staggered back. No, Marcus murmured. Worse. She was human enough to pass every suspicion test, but engineered enough to operate beyond normal detection. A sudden, piercing whine erupted from the receiver. The needles slammed into the red zone. Marcus's face drained of color. They just activated the secondary channel. Kim grabbed his arm. Meaning? Marcus looked at her, voice barely above a whisper. Meaning Elena is alive. And she's closing in. The apartment lights flickered as the receiver's scream cut through the room, an electric shriek rising and falling like a hunt signal. Marcus killed the power, grabbed Kim by the wrist, and pulled her into the hallway. She's within 300 feet, he whispered. That device only spikes when a carrier is close and transmitting. A carrier, Kim repeated, as if the word itself were poison. They raced down the stairwell, emerging into the cold night air. The two federal shadows were already repositioning, one near the entrance, the other on the opposite sidewalk. Not approaching, not intervening, just watching. Why aren't they stopping her? Kim hissed. Because they don't want her captured, Marcus said. They want her followed. Before Kim could process that, a figure stepped out from the alley behind the dumpsters. A woman, small-framed, grey coat, dark hair pinned up, her posture impossibly familiar. Kim's chest collapsed inward. Elena? But the woman who emerged was not the Elena she remembered. Her face looked almost unchanged. Same gentle eyes, same soft lines, but now sharpened by something colder, metallic in purpose. And yet, impossibly, she looked no older than she had 20 years ago. Elena raised a hand, not in greeting, but in calibration. The street lamps dimmed a fraction, as if reacting to her presence. Kim, honey, she said softly, you shouldn't have come outside. Kim shook, tears welling. You lied to me. For years. Elena's expression wavered just a flicker of sorrow, or the imitation of it. Marcus stepped between them. Stay where you are, Elena. The signal burst, gave you away. Your carrier frequency is compromised. Elena smiled faintly. Not compromised. Evolving. Kim felt her knees weaken. To retrieve the archive, Elena said. The memories, the tracking imprints, everything I stored during the years I lived with you. Marcus tensed. You didn't just babysit her. You profiled her family, their routines, their social networks. You built a behavioral map. A map, Elena said gently. The two federal agents finally stepped forward, slow and deliberate. But Elena didn't run. She exhaled. A soft, rhythmic tremor pulsed through the air, felt more than heard. The agents froze, mid-step, disoriented. Elena turned to Kim. Kim's breath hitched. Because that's what all of us did, Elena whispered. And what your government wanted to learn how to do better. Then, before Kim could blink, headlights flared. An unmarked Bureau SUV skidded around the corner. A directional microwave emitter mounted to the roof launched a focused beam. A burst of white light struck Elena square in the chest. She collapsed, without a sound. Kim screamed, running toward her, but Marcus held her back. Kim, don't. That was a resonance disruptor. It shuts down the embedded hardware. She's not stable. The agents swarmed Elena's body, securing her with metallic restraints shaped for wrists and temples, nothing like handcuffs. Marcus exhaled shakily. Kim looked at him, horrified. Why? Marcus's voice dropped to a chilling murmur. Because America didn't just want to survive the Cold War. It wanted to win the next one. And whatever Elena is, she's more valuable alive than dead. The receiver in Marcus's pocket clicked once sharp, final, signal terminated. Operation complete. And for the first time in her life, Kim understood the truth Marcus had implied from the beginning. In the silent wars between superpowers, victory didn't belong to the strongest. It belonged to the one who learned fastest from the enemy. And tonight, America had learned everything.